terrorism is not a cultural problem. Terrorism is a political problem.
No, and it's a religious problem as well. And it's a religious problem.
In your view, Douglas.
No, in the view of a lot of people, including the people who carry out acts of terror, who say they do it in the name of religion.
They also say they do it because of foreign policy, and you always ignore that bit, don't you, Douglas?
No, I don't.
When they say they do it because of Iraq, you don't.
Of course it's done on behalf of religion. What kind of a stupid argument is that? What do you mean? It's not political. It's religious. It's trying to kill the kuffar so Islam can take over, to instill fear in people's eyes and in people's hearts so they convert. They did it 1400 years ago. They've been doing it ever since. Hi guys, doing this is Sahar TV, and in today's video we'll watch Mehdi, Hassan and Douglas Murray talk about the topic of immigration to the UK. It's going to be interesting. Let's watch. It's a pretty old video, by the way.
Do you agree with David Cameron that multiculturalism in the UK has failed?
Douglas Murray.
Yes, I think he was right. And I think we should start this by just reminding ourselves what multiculturalism is not. Multiculturalism is not multiracialism. It isn't pluralism. For years, the multicultural policy has been able to glide along, in part because of that misunderstanding. Because of the misunderstanding that when you talk about multiculturalism as a policy, what you're talking about is solely immigration, or multiracialism, or so on. It's allowed itself an incredible easy ride, not least by the fact that this confusion has meant that any critic of multiculturalism has been immediately decried for years now as a racist of some kind.
What do you understand by multiculturalism?
Multiculturalism
in the way
as a
that David
policy,
Cameron described.
as a policy, multiculturalism is the following. It is the idea that there is effectively no such thing as British society or British culture. There are simply different communities which you're born into. If, for instance, you're born into a community of an Asian background, you will be treated by government throughout your life as a member of the Asian community. If you're born into some other racial or religious grouping, you'll be regarded in that way. And that anything in that group could be different from what the norm in society goes on. Let me give one quick example I gave in an article yesterday in the Wall Street Journal. It's been quite commonly known in recent years, for instance, that girls of Pakistani origin have, at the age of 16, been taken out of British schools and married to older men. Now, if a white girl of 16 over recent decades had been married against her will to some randy old pervert who wanted to have his way with her, the state would have stepped in. It would have rightly said that that was an outrage. But, lo and behold, 16-year-old girls of Asian origin disappearing from their schools, nobody wanted to mention it because it could be thought to be racist. Right. The idea was that there are different values for different...
Mehdi Hassan is like cranking his face. He's getting angry.
People in society, and there is nothing more divisive than that, and I'm glad that David Cameron has called time on it.
Mehdi Hassan, different values for different people in society.
Well,
and it's time to
in answer to the question, I think he's wrong. I don't agree with Douglas's definition at all. I believe I'm a product of multiculturalism, not just multiracialism. My father came to this country in 1966. He used to write lots of letters to newspapers with his views on the stories of the day, and he used to get dog litter through his letterbox in response. That 45 years later, in my view, 45 years later, his son can sit here on Question Time with David Dimbleby and a Conservative minister and say that I'm a proud Briton and a proud Asian and a proud Muslim. I think is a testimony to the success of multiculturalism in this country, which is definitely not far. And just on Douglas's point. On Douglas's point about anyone who goes against multiculturalism is regarded as a racist, A, that's not true, but B, let's look at the reaction to David Cameron's speech. Nick Griffin said it was a provocative speech. When Nick Griffin says your speech is provocative, you know you're in trouble. The daughter of the leader of the French National Front, Jean-Marie Le Pen, said she wanted to congratulate David Cameron on his speech, and the leader of the EDL in Luton said he's saying what we're saying, he knows what his base is saying. So when I hear reactions like that, I do worry about such speech.
Well, what do you think he was getting at? What was he trying to say? Do you think he was speaking in a way that he intended to appeal?
I think he did. And it's sad because, look, I'm quite critical of David Cameron, but in 2007 he wrote an article in The Observer in which he said we can't bully people into Britishness, we have to inspire them, integration is a two-way street, it's not just about immigrant communities, it's about all of us. And that David Cameron disappeared. 4 years later he turns up in Munich, of all places, to tell us that we need this muscular liberalism and to talk like Douglas about forced marriages. Sorry, how many people have forced marriages in this country? And show me which cultural group defends forced marriages and which government defends forced marriages. I've yet to come across a single one.
I've been very lucky. I've lived and worked all over the world. And Britain is by far the most tolerant society I've ever come across. However, what I'm concerned about is that
because they're the most tolerant, that's why they're going to be the most screwed. Because the British society has this white guilt, not all of you, if you're British and you're watching, not all of you, but you have this white guilt, you know, for Britain colonizing half of the world, and then you're like, oh, we did some wrongdoings in the past, some atrocities in the past, now we'll allow people to come in just to show the world that we're sorry. But then you're committing suicide by doing that. You're committing suicide by doing that.
I think Douglas was right. What seems to happen is when something is said, there are minority groups of growing vocal ability who will find offence in whatever you say and find a channel to get that offence shouted about. And that, I think, is part of the problem we've got now. But the bottom line is we are an incredibly tolerant society, and we should be very, very proud of that.
Jackie Smith. Douglas Murray, do you want to come back on what Mehdi Hassan said?
Well, look, I mean, both of the sort of left-wing people on the panel tonight, Mehdi and Jackie Smith, if you can still call Labour members left-wing, but both of them have done the same thing the left always does on this. You try to have a discussion about the failure of multiculturalism, and you have the BNP thrown in by Mehdi. Told, well, the BNP member congratulated him, at least concede, Mehdi, all sorts of crazy and horrible and disgusting people can jump on a bandwagon without meaning that it's the wrong thing to have said. Maybe they're just opportunists. I suspect they are. And Jackie then throws in the example of the EDL and thinks, do you really think, Jackie, that was what David Cameron was aiming to do? I mean, a couple of, 100 people marching in Luton does not mean the Prime Minister of Britain should not be making a speech about a very serious matter. And this is a problem. The debate by the left is always attempted to be shut down by associating it with far-right extremist and racist groups instead of having a frank and honest discussion.
I did not say that he shouldn't make the speech. And I said I thought the argument he made in the speech was right, and incidentally, it was one that we had previously made. What I said was it would have been appropriate, given that speech, to also say that when we're promoting shared British values against Islamist extremism, we should also do it against right-wing extremism.
I think you can belittle the idea of a couple of hundred extremists, but if you put yourself in the shoes of a British Muslim in Luton or in other cities where the EDL have marched who live in fear of those groups, then I think they have a...
Weren't the British Muslims in Luton spitting on the graves of returned soldiers or something like this? That's why the EDL started in the first place? That was the first outburst.
Right for their Prime Minister not to go abroad to Germany and send them lectures from there on who isn't and isn't an extremist.
Take a couple of points from our audience, and then we'll go on to another question. The gentleman there, you say. And you, sir.
I mean, I agree with the gentleman who just said that Britain is a very tolerant society. Yes, it is very true. It's a very, very tolerant society. Sadly, the tolerance of this country has been abused by certain religious groups.
Yep.
And I completely agree with Douglas Murray when he said that Mr. Cameron has done the right thing. And I hope Mr. Cameron means business. Now, Mr. Cameron was making this speech in the context of terrorism. And what he was trying to convey a message was how we target terrorism. Unfortunately, this country in the last 15 years has not addressed the root cause of terrorism. The root cause of terrorism is bad teaching in religious schools. And that has to be addressed fundamentally.
It's rubbish.
You're saying rubbish. It's rubbish.
Of course Mehdi would say it's rubbish. He's trying to apply taqiyya on the conversation. He's trying to protect Islam. That's a part of the whole thing, you know? Trying to make Islam seem peaceful. As long as Islam is the minority in the UK, you're good. But as soon as they become the majority, you're screwed.
I mean, very briefly, we didn't get into this, but one of my other objections to David Cameron's speech is the idea, you want to give a speech on multiculturalism, give a speech on multiculturalism. You want to give a speech on counter-terrorism, give a speech on counter-terrorism. Don't pretend they're one and the same thing. Don't offend our intelligence. Terrorism is not a cultural problem. Terrorism is a political problem.
No, and it's a religious problem as well. And it's a religious problem.
In your view, Douglas.
No, in the view of a lot of people, including the people who carry out acts of terror, who say they do it in the name of religion.
They also say they do it because of foreign policy, and you always ignore that bit, don't you, Douglas?
No, I don't.
When they say they do it because of Iraq, you don't...
Of course it's done on behalf of religion. What kind of a stupid argument is that? What do you mean? It's not political. It's religious. It's trying to kill the kuffar so Islam can take over, to instill fear in people's eyes and in people's hearts so they convert. They did it 1400 years ago. They've been doing it ever since.
Notice that,
At least listen to the reason they say they do it.
Agreed. So why didn't he talk about foreign policy in his speech on
I'm willing
Saturday?
to talk about foreign policy, as would David Cameron be.
Good.
But
he
you
didn't.
cannot
But he
keep on
didn't.
pretending that there is no religious component to the
I thought you
terrorism,
said it was
because there
cultural.
is.
I thought you said it was cultural.
No, we'll just... wait a minute, Mehdi.
Cultural and religion
Just
is not the same.
stick with religion. You're saying there is no religious component.
I'm saying there is a religious component. I'm saying it's not a cultural component. The people who blew themselves up on the London Underground were not people who couldn't speak English or didn't go to secular
Absolutely,
schools.
that's the tragedy of it.
Well,
That's
then
one
don't
of the
say it's a
tragedies of
cultural
it.
problem.
No, but you're
don't
trying to-
pretend
no,
that forced marriage.
Because maybe you're doing what
They
you're
weren't
doing
on a
is that
forced
you are
marriage.
enjoying
Okay,
Again,
sorry,
if
I
you
can
speak at
assure
once,
you.
nobody can hear, so let's have a little bit of order, shall we? Let's have a question, please, from Gemma Perlin.
Could the introduction of democracy to Egypt...
Okay, I don't like the way this video is edited, but I wanted to hear Douglas's response to Mehdi, which is a shame. But of course, it's got a religious aspect to it. It's the main aspect of it. It's exactly the same reason for the rape gangs, of the grooming gangs that happen in all around the UK. Stop pretending that it isn't. Stop pretending that it isn't. Islamists are killing people on behalf of Islam in many different countries around Europe, in many different countries around Africa, in many different countries in Asia. They do it on behalf of Islam. So you can like it or you can disagree with it. It's perfectly fine. You have to remember that if you move to Britain, you need to learn the language, you need to practice and take part of society. And the moment you step foot in Great Britain, your values should align perfectly with the values of the British people.
If you'd like to watch more of my stuff, please check out my channel down below. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification button so you can be notified every time I upload new content. If you'd like to support me and the channel financially, you can do that using Buy Me Coffee or Patreon down in the links below. Also, we now have a Discord that you can join down in the link below. And now you can become a YouTube member and enjoy specific YouTube perks. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.